Hello, everybody. I'm Micol Bez. I am doing my PhD here in Northwestern in Chicago. I'm also the fellow of the Epistemic Reparation Working Group. I'm really sorry not to be there with you this time. Last year was such a transformative experience, and I was so grateful for it. And so I'm really heartbroken not to be there with you this year. And I know that it'll be an incredible set of dialogues and encounters. And so, yeah. But I'm very grateful, on the other hand, to be able to share this material anyway. And I'm particularly grateful to Veli and Shanae and Dimple for finding a way for us to be able to share these with you and to, initiate this dialogue that I know the people involved in this project really, really care about. So thank you so much for bearing with me and for sharing this moment. Um, this is a collective project. I'm going to share my presentation now, but um, yeah, okay, yes. Okay, great. This is a collective project and co-authored and the result of a very, very deep and long collaboration with the following people. Patrick Comey, Jason Samuel, Anthony Harris, Darwin Anderson, Mohammed Salahat, Giovanni Rios, Romeo Winters, Dania Williams, Ariel Bueno, Oscar Gutierrez, and Joyce Lee. And Joyce is an undergrad here in Northwestern, and to whom we're very grateful. She was essential to the process and very dear to all of us. So yeah, maybe I'll say just two words about the origins of the project and what made it come to maturity. So in the last years now, I have been working in various capacities with the Northwestern Prison Education Program, which is headed by Jennifer and is a wonderful educational program for people who are currently incarcerated at Sheridan and at the moment at the Sheridan Correctional Center and at Logan um, and in jails in Chicago as well. And I've contributed to this project in various ways. I taught, I TA'd, I graded, I was a tutor for some time, I taught my class. But one way that has been very meaningful to me is that I was able to contribute to the community by taking pictures of graduations and of the conference which we had with the Epistemic Reparations Working Group within the carceral facility, once at Stateville and once at Sheridan. And through this process of taking pictures and serving as the community photographer or one of them, um, I learned so much about how much people want and need pictures and representation in that way, how much they desired to be photographed. That's something I did not initially expect. And how important it was to them to have these representations and how they cherished the possibility of sharing them with their families and such. And this is because images are extremely regimented and censored within carceral institutions, and people are most of the people involved in this project, their last 5, 10 pictures, or in any case, in the last 15, 20 years, sometimes, they all of them were taken by the prison, and so were either mugshots and surveillance pictures to record their latest resemblance, but that's it. Or if not mugshots, there were pictures that sometimes when the families come, they have the option of taking a picture, but that picture is very limited in how people can show their affection, can hold their buddies, they cannot hug their family members, for example. They cannot really be natural. And we thought a lot about how this lack of images and representations affects their relationship to their families, to their kids, and how it harms them. So that's one part that's in out of these conversations came the project. But the other part is also when I was in South Africa last year, I gave a little paper about narrative and epistemic reparation, and we, starting from what Jennifer discusses in her Right to Be Known paper about the fact that we need to tell round stories, so stories that tell a round, give a round account of a person and don't reduce them to just one action or one thing about them. So that would be a flat story, right? And to this tension between flat and round stories, I had added that maybe we should have epistemically rich stories, so stories that challenge the listener's point of view, stories that are critical, that, put you into question, put your prejudice or your privilege or the forms of structural injustice that the subject of the story is, subjected to, put all of that into question, or, shake it up a little, shake our sense of security in certain narrations, or, challenge dominant narrations, right? So this would be epistemically rich stories. They develop a critical reader in a way, or a virtuous listener, right? Okay. But then, we were discussing at the time in South Africa with Jennifer and others, and we were thinking, okay, but maybe these are, this works for the novels that I was analyzing at the time, but maybe doesn't work in practice for reparations. It's just takes too much time, requires, it's just too much of a demanding thing. Not everybody can have a novel written, right? And so part of this project and the idea of resorting to the image as a possible, dialectical or critical tool was to think about, like, can we tell epistemically rich stories in a simple way? Okay, so out of these two threads came the project. So very much within the epistemic reparations kind of, out of all of our conversations. And how we went about it is that, we sat down as a group for a long time and we did, journaling and writing workshops and talking, dialogical workshops to think about, these three sets of questions. Who's taking your last 5 pictures? Do you recognize yourself? How has that harmed you? Can you imagine repair? And then the question that we played around for the rest of the project is, what would reparations look like? Can you tell me an image that you would like to make some steps towards that direction? And when talking about how the lack of representation or the vilified representation or the flat representation harm them, people discussed a lot of variety of harms, symbolic harm, properly epistemic damage, relational harm to their relationship to their families, to their relationship to themselves, their self-image, um, self, to their relationship to self-doubt. But yeah, they definitely centered their communities, and the fact that they've already been being incarcerated is being put out of view, not to be seen outside of society, and that the way in which pictures are constantly censored amplifies that and makes the relational harm even stronger. So yeah, we went about it in this manner for quite a bit, and we would take pictures throughout our conversation. So sometimes we would have sessions of pictures in dialogue where we would, do portraits as we were talking about reparations and how how they were thinking about it. And then we used those images to hold a diary for everybody. So a journal, and so to take notes on different points that came out of conversation. So you see here, for example, Giovanni making a point about the structural aspect of reparation, that he thinks that when thinking about reparation, we have to get down to the root causes of harm and the systemic and structural. Or in this other picture, you have a comment more about, like, the experience of being portrayed by carceral institutions. where it says, my last picture taken on the visit, the family visit, I had to stand like a robot, and now I can relax with 100% agency. Now, we discussed a lot about, what's 100% agency, but definitely we did try our very best within the conditions that we were in. Yeah, so this is just to give you a sense of the process, but now I just want to share with you the results, or the work in progress of the pictures that people made, or that we made together. Yeah. But yeah, this, sorry, my cat is okay, thank you. This work is titled Bury the Hate. I'll just read the description that Oscar wrote. People have created narratives about us, and in some cases, we have allowed such narratives to live on. The purpose of my picture is to bury that hate in a field of marigolds, which is the flower of the Day of the Dead celebrations. Being buried with everybody's statements and memories is also the blue prison shirt, and the belief that men and women deserve to be tossed away in carceral spaces. So yeah, during a workshop, Oscar asked us to ask everybody in the group to provide ways they'd been called, or vilifying statements about them, and then decided to bury them symbolically here. This work is titled If I Shall Live by Ariel Bueno. When talking about representations that were important to us and self-portraits where we experienced agency, I dug up a memory. It is a cultural thing a lot of us from Chicago do to commemorate our dead. We wear t-shirts with their pictures. Before coming to prison at the age of 16, I used to take commemorative pictures of myself in the streets so that if I ended up dead, my friends would make t-shirts to remember and honor me. We all assumed that we would be killed in the streets. By taking these pictures with full agency about where and how we posed, we wanted to take control of how we would be represented. I wanted to be represented as someone who loved his block and gave his life for the streets, a martyr in a sense. Now, I want to be represented as someone who will live and who has a chance to celebrate his life and his contribution to community. This work is called Footnotes, and I'll read Daniel's statements. Prison tattoos are usually seen as symbols of criminality and vehicles for violent communication. Try Googling it and you'll find a flurry of dictionaries and guides on how to decode the criminal meaning engraved on the skin of incarcerated folks. And I can make a side note here. They're not able to access the internet or Google, but this came out of a conversation that we were having about the fact that I had Googled prison tattoos, and I found all of this material, which then I was able to share with them. They're objects of great fascination and vilification in the public gaze. Then there is the gaze of the carceral institution, which we can never escape. On the one hand, prisons are obsessed with tattoos, with cataloging them, photographing them, and neutralizing the danger they supposedly constitute. On the other, in their files and records, prison reduced tattoos to flat representations of more or less criminality and danger. So I decided to footnote my tattoos, to tell a rounder story about them and about myself. Top and bottom, you can see my footnotes, right and left, the way my carceral record describes my tattoos. I'll just read maybe number 4 from this one, then we'll move to the next. The hearts are a reminder that there is nothing more powerful than love, because God is love. Love pulled me out of a pit of despair and mended my scars from the world. So this is footnotes too, so in the same series. I'll read some of the footnotes to just keep you company whilst you look. This tattoo reads, "Know thyself." I believe, sorry, there's a thing in the front that's obscuring it for me. Never mind, I'll read you number 6. My scar, skin graft, is a visual reminder of the pain I inflicted on myself, as well as that which the world inflicted on me. However, the Ankh tattoo on my scarf represents healing, resilience, and rebirth. Okay, now I can see it. I'll read you one. 1. This tattoo reads, "Know thyself." I believe that it is only through knowing ourselves intimately that we get to know the forces that shaped us, the privileges we benefited from, and the structural barriers we encountered. We can know God for ourselves by turning our attention inward to the God within us, but it is also a starting point to know others. Knowing the self becomes knowledge of the world. 2. The baobab tree is indigenous to the African continent, and it represents my connection to the cradle of civilization. 3. The bird expresses serenity and peace of mind and spirit. I'll move on. So this work on reclaiming historical and cultural heritage is by Romel Winters. I'll read. If reparation is owed to many of us, it is because our cultural capital has been taken away from us and our epistemic inheritance has been pillaged and interrupted. I want restitution for this loss. In the background are my great-grandparents who first immigrated to central Illinois from the south to make a better life for themselves. The notes are by my aunt. So this is a picture that you see in the back from the beginning of the 20th century. Another family reunion, this one half a century later. These are family members who lived across the US from Michigan all the way to Texas. I would like to recuperate their stories, build an archive. And I think we see the first steps towards this archive in the annotations on the picture. I'll just read you one in case you can't read it. This one is quite curious. Grandmother Esther, her and her sister Coral married two brothers, my grandfather Norman and his brother Charles. So that's the orange asterisk. And then this is last in a series of 3. It's titled Look Like Malcolm, still by Romel Winters. If you don't recognize him, I can't help you. Historical theft of cultural and epistemic resources did not only concern family archives and interrupted relations, but crucially, the predation on and silencing of our cultural and political leaders. I want to reclaim him in thick grain and black and white, as I remember seeing him on TV, like a lighthouse. But then, I also want to carry with me Jill Scott Heron and his intuition about resistance being live. Okay. So this work is dedicated to Puerto Rican resistance. We've done obscuring a national history. And you're listening to the background music. So referring to the Mexico displaying the flag was made illegal in 48 with the Gadsden. And this is the second in the same series. I want to read you the sorry. Well, you can read it yourself. I'll start a bit lower because I have an obstacle in the front. But if I remember correctly, he's talking about how reparations need to address structural issues, and that they need to go down to the causes of harm as in structural systems of injustice. And so when he was asked to make a self-portrait, he realized that he did not want to be the subject of it, that he couldn't, not alone. And I'll go back to his statement now. I wanted my people to be in the picture, as I feel that the reparation I want to seek is collective and structural, as is the harm I've endured. I grew up in Humboldt Park, a historic neighborhood of the Puerto Rican diaspora in Chicago. I grew up proud of this heritage, yet I knew so little about the colonial history of Puerto Rico, a Caribbean island which is to this day an incorporated U.S. territory. I knew little of the predatory, extractivist, and violent behavior of the U.S. on this land and of the entangled histories of resistance and subjection that I am the result of. I'm constantly struck by how little people in the US and even in Humboldt Park know about the history of Puerto Rico. When thinking of epistemic reparation, I think of how to change that. And I think even in the previous work and in this one, you see how much research Giovanni is doing and how much archival, how he wanted to center archival documents in his portraits. And this is the last one from this series. Was initially like he intended it to be just a portrait of himself in this position, but it was not allowed. The pictures have to go through scrutiny from the prison, and so this picture was erased. So we decided to draw it as a cartoon, so as to avoid the problems, similar problems, but we superimposed it on Humboldt Park High School. As Giovanni says, underneath is Humboldt Park High School and its colonial silences. Yeah. This work is titled Muhammad. It's by Mohammed Salahat. The bottom of the picture reads, "The first time in 14 years that Mohammed had agency in how he was photographed. This is what he chose." And I'll read his statement now. "From a young age, my mother taught me to be proud of Islam and of my Palestinian heritage. In my 14 years of imprisonment, I've had to endure comments like, your name is Muhammad. Do you know how many Muhammads I've killed while serving in the army? Or when praying in my cell, when they were praying, that was the best time for an ambush, when they were at their most vulnerable. Or even, you're Palestinian? Shame you're not dead." Such comments made silence of who I am, and at a time when so many are being silenced, I no longer can afford to remain silent. This workshop helped me reclaim my voice. I chose to take a minimalist approach in my image because I am not asking to be interpreted. I'm going to tell you who I am. It's work by Darwin, and his statement reads, "The reparation process doesn't always allow access to accessories such as scissors. To cut these images, Micol and I had to use our hands, a pen, and a lot of stubbornness. The headlines on the left are taken from recent newspapers commenting on the anti-ICE protests in LA and across the USA. In this work, they symbolize the obstacles I've had to overcome, but I also want to stand in solidarity with those enduring police violence today. Restoring my inheritance is very important to me as I'm motivated to be a man my family is proud of. I am Harriet's son." Um, this work is called Heir to the House of Harris by Anthony Harris. "I am a heir to a magnificent family that predates me and continues to this day, with my wonderful children, who I could not be more proud of." This work is inspired by Game of Thrones and its stories of dynasties and inheritance, and it aims to ask a question: who is entitled to carry their heritage in that way, with pride and ceremoniousness? Can I? What does Black respectability look like in America today? What would a crest of the House of Harris look like? Could I imagine it? One of my NPEP classmates drew the crest you see on top of the picture, inspired by my family history. And then maybe I'll let you in just another note about the family is that they all have the same initials, ASH. Anthony Swain Sr., Anthony Swain Jr., Anna Simone, Ashton Sage, they're all Harrises. Okay. Let me read this description by Jason. "The reason I want to be seen working through an astronomical equation which measures the difference of gravity between Earth and the planet Mars is to show how I overcame my fourth grade math teacher's horrid methods. She used her classroom at Our Lady of Sorrows grammar school to bully students for making mathematical mistakes. She made me believe for years that math was either too hard or I was not smart enough. However, through hard work, practice, and repetition, I learned that I am smart enough to work my way through math problems that allow astronauts to reach the stars." And now this is the last series of works that I'll share with you. This one is titled Take Two by Patrick Comey. The description just reads, mugshots are supposed to flatten our stories forever. But have you ever looked at the mugshots of freedom riders in 1961 Mississippi? There is nothing flat about the story their expressions tell. And for reference, this is a mugshot of a freedom rider in Mississippi in the 60s. This is Catherine Burks Brooks. We had looked at many of these portraits, of these mugshots during the workshop, so that's part of the reason for the inspiration. But yeah, this is Patrick Comey's portrait. This is from the same series, Kingly Characters. And he says, this is a rather comedic sketch of a work in progress. In the frame, a portrait of my mother as queen, which I have painted many years ago while incarcerated in another institution. The garments were inspired by those of Emperor Haile Selassie in a famous portrait. And the painting is itself very beautiful. You don't see it here very well, but the painting is extraordinary. Okay, so this is the last image I will share with you. And this was not a planned portrait. It just happened, as he says. This just happened, and I believe it tells a truly round story about me. These are the people who make up who I am, who I'm proud of, and who are proud of me, to whom I want to apologize for my mistakes and dedicate my ongoing efforts. They are the relations that testify to the complexity of who I am. And around the picture, at different points, he wrote notes to the family members that are represented. And we hope that when we put on an exhibit, family members will be able to come. And also we're looking into ways to distribute these works and maybe send them to the families that cannot come. So that, we can truly go into the relational aspect that are so dear to most, but I would say everybody in the workshop. And so that's also why we agreed to close with this image, because we think that it does tie together a lot of the concerns and worries and harm that people have expressed, but also the desires that they have for relational repair. And yeah, maybe one last note on the fact that I'm very sorry that it's just me presenting this work. I would love to, for all of us to present it to you together, which was not possible, but we have tried to do the second best thing, which is to have this presentation. I showed it to them yesterday, and we incorporated their notes and changed things here and there, and everything that is said here is what we had agreed upon. So at least that. Thank you so much for sharing these moments with me and these works. Yeah, and I wish you a very lovely continuation of the conference and dialogues and discoveries. Um, yeah, thank you so much.